Let's go. Boss. Yeah, it's the Fugees. Outsiders. Classic joint. Been playing this a lot actually. Ole. Grab your gun, boy. You know what I'm saying? Fire. So, we'll talk about this Last of Us shit with some cowboy ass shit in the background because The Last of Us is, in fact, very much, it's got some Western elements, some fantasy elements with the zombie shit. So, the mix of those two things is pretty good. And I have to say, The Last of Us is the best show that I've tried to watch recently. I don't watch a lot of television. So that's, take my word with a grain of salt. But compared to Severance, which I couldn't get through, I got to the fourth episode and I felt like I was getting my time wasted. So I stopped. Then I also tried to watch White Lotus, which I couldn't get through, honestly. Just couldn't do it. I watched the first episode. That was enough for me. So this Last of Us is probably the best show that I've seen in a little while. In fact, actually, it might be the best TV show I've seen since Squid Game. But I'll talk about Squid Game. I'll come back to Squid Game. So The Last of Us is decent. It's a good show. I don't think it's incredible personally, but I do think it's good. As they're making their way through town or whatever with the zombies and all that shit. What I like about The Last of Us is that there is more of a serious approach to the zombie thing, because I'm not really a zombie guy like that. But they do have, Craig Mazin, who is a good writer, has provided some context. And I'm not sure if this came from the game because I didn't play the game, but that context as to how the zombie thing happened, they gave it a little bit more of a scientific leaning, which I like. It's still obviously not realistic, but it's at least I can suspend disbelief. You know what I'm saying? So I do like that. And I think that in general, the world is a fairly interesting world. It remains to be seen how well they can develop the show, right? Because ultimately I didn't play the game and I don't know if it translates. For example, what I'm trying to say is the zombies are the most interesting part to me. So if we keep sort of going off course from finding out more, sort of revelations as to why it happened, how it happened, what else is going on with the zombies, how they're evolving, all that kind of stuff. And we start sort of spending more time dealing with human factions and all that stuff. That shit will bore me to tears, honestly. But I think it's a decent show. Don't get me wrong. I think it's definitely probably the best thing on TV right now in terms of mainstream television. The accolades are interesting because I know that they're forcing it. I saw a lot of forced accolades on the internet from various news sources, whether it be Variety and things, talking about episode 3 might be one of the greatest episodes of television ever. I'm like, for what? It was okay. It was clearly a filler episode. So come on, knock it off. You know what I mean? It was a decently well done filler episode, but it's still filler. I mean, ultimately, the only thing that came out of that episode is that Joel and Ellie, or whatever her name is, get a truck. That's literally the whole point of that episode. And I'm sorry, just because they went Brokeback Mountain doesn't mean that shit is critically acclaimed. I mean, it might be to somebody who's on some virtual signaling shit, but that alone is not gonna make me go this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I thought it was decent. I didn't think it was anything super incredible, to be honest with you. It was decent. It was cool. Now, you want to talk about one of the greatest episodes of television I've ever seen? The glass episode from Squid Game. That's the real shit, okay? And a lot of these people, you always throw hyperbole, but the real shit, that glass episode, I think it was episode 7 of Squid Game, that's one of the best TV show episodes I've ever seen. And I keep coming back to Squid Game because, real talk, the best shit comes out of nowhere. That shit came out of nowhere and crushed buildings for real. And still didn't really get the props that it deserves, in my opinion. Squid Game changed the fucking game. Okay? So anyways, Last of Us, I liked it. It was cool. Moving on. Let's talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once. This whack ass shit. I haven't seen this, movie since, I basically talked about it months ago, or almost a year ago. I was one of the first people to see it. It's actually kind of interesting to kind of see how the hype train has continued to go. Yeah, it's still probably the worst movie, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I haven't watched it since. I have no desire to see it ever since. I know a fair amount of people who have tried to watch it and think it's trash. I'm not surprised. But then there's also some people I know who like it. It's a movie. But I will say this though, that hype train, the amount of money that A24 is spending on this movie, pretty crazy. I'm sure it's crazy. And it's interesting because there is like this sort of almost underdog look that A24 is trying to go for with this movie, where it's like, oh look, it's just like scrappy movie made by these like two little kids, not little kids, but you know what I'm saying, the Daniels, and it's performing so well because it's so creative. It's like, no, it's because you're pumping millions of dollars into marketing and bots and accounts and all that shit and getting writers to prop it up. It's not that great of a movie. I'm sorry. It's in fact to me a pretty horrible movie in the grand scheme of things. And I know a lot of people feel that way. And it's a niche film, man. Like nobody. I know it's done pretty well in the box office. I think for a specialty film necessarily, but they've also spent a ton on the marketing for sure. You can tell. And I think again, it's interesting. I see certain parallels with hip hop and the film game because there's a lot of this sort of like remember when Kendrick came out and he was like underground, but he was like supposedly grassroots, even though he'd been signed to Interscope. So it's like he happened to be buzzing organically, but of course it's in air quotes because we all know that this stuff was being pushed. And that's really what this like Everything Everywhere All at Once is. It's forced critical acclaim. That's literally the story of the last, I say, 10 to 15 years in particular. Everything has to be the greatest, it has to be one of the greatest. It's a marketing strategy, and it has to seem like it's organic and came from like the masses or whatever, when in fact it didn't. But that's okay. That's fine. It's the nature of the game. If you've seen it, let me know. Like I said, I didn't think this. I've already covered why I don't like the movie. I don't want to really go back into that. But it's a flavor of the month. We won't be talking about Everything All at Once like a year from now. We just won't be. Unless, of course, it's forced. For whatever reason, A24 wants to bring it back up, and then you'll get a whole rollout marketing campaign. But it's gone today. Here today, gone tomorrow. Do we talk about Parasite? I remember people talking about Parasite. It's the greatest movie in a long time or ever, blah, blah. We don't even talk about Parasite no more. Nobody gives a fuck. That's the thing about these movies, man. You have no replay value. And if you're not making a movie with replay value, you can't say that your shit is the greatest. I'm sorry. Replay value is the king. In music, in film. Something that has replay value, right? Rewatch value. You can see something and be like, I really fucking like that. Over and over and over again. That's when you know you've crafted some hot shit. Everything else is just hyperbole, man. And I'm over it. Moving on. Oh, I don't know who it was that mentioned The Menu, the film. That movie is trash. Sorry. Like, that is a horrible movie. If you guys have ever seen The Menu, that movie was a waste of my time. Now, did I watch the whole thing? Yes. And I will say that in that respect, it's better than Tar and a lot of these other movies, which I couldn't even get through. I got through the whole thing of The Menu for two reasons. One, I was like, I want to see where they're going with this. I feel like they're not going anywhere with this, but I want to be able to say that I know for a fact they didn't go nowhere with this. And I was right. They didn't really go anywhere with it. The second thing is the short runtime, which I appreciate. Okay, the movie was like an hour and 45 minutes, and I said, you know what? An hour and 45 minutes, yeah, sure, why not? I can do that. But if it's like one of these boring movies like Tar and shit like that, it's like 2.5 hours, and I'm an hour in and I don't care about what's going on, I'm not coming back for the rest. Okay? So someone, I think it was Ronnie, shout out to Ronnie, who was talking about these long run times on movies. Yeah, I don't understand where that shit came from. I think to me, a movie should be in and out. That's what makes movies great. It's dreamlike. Dreams are, your dreams are in and out type of thing. You know what I'm saying? By the time you get into it, it's already over. And you're like, oh my God, that was powerful. I want to go back. So the long runtime to me shows bad writing every time. Bad writing, bad editing, bad story choices, because screenplays to me should be tight. That's the genius of screenplays. That's what's really hard about writing screenplays, is writing stuff that's concise and to the point, but maximizes the emotional impact. That shit is like a fucking science. It's like science, it's shit, man. It is really, really, really hard. So when you see people able to pull it off, it's phenomenal. Those are some of the best writers, like, in film history almost. So I like stuff brevity. Get to the point, man, when you're making my films. So the menu was to the point, even though the menu could have been shorter, without a doubt, because you spend a lot of time on preamble. For those of y'all who've seen it, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there is a lot of preamble. That movie, and I think, again, that's why that movie isn't so good, because it's the kind of premise that really could have been filmed in 45 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, by the time they get to the island, and it takes forever for them to get to the island and for the menu to really start rolling out, and for them to get to the point of what the menu is about, it takes like really a long time, honestly. Because it's a one-note premise. It doesn't go anywhere after that. It's like, okay, all right, this guy with this crazy menu, spoilers, who is out here to kill everybody, and that's kind of obvious, as you're watching it. It's like, okay, so but what next? Like, why is this important? Like, why should I like care about all this shit? It's like literally the premise of the movie is a crazy chef invites all these people to kill them in this like twisted way, and then he kills them. Like, who gives a shit? This is boring. Like, that's the definition of a one-note premise. It goes absolutely nowhere. It doesn't explore the topic really. It pretty much ends the way you think it would. Trash film. I'm sorry. So, last but not least, this is kind of unrelated, but song I've been playing a lot. You better stop. Think about what you're doing. Shout out to Ace Gems, man. This is a crazy screw, man. What you're doing. Listen to this joint, man. What you doing? I love the way that this Sean Price shit sound, man. Like, slow down, you know what I mean? This is like taking that like New York and bringing it to Houston type shit. Don't waste your time. And on that note, Bozo's love. I'm off from the wire. User.